Okay, we are live. We are live. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I'm Laverne from Love Life Now Foundation. As you know, we do these pop up lives where we come and talk to you around the issue of domestic violence awareness. We want to keep the issue in the forefront as much as possible. We don't want this to be a topic when a celebrity is being affected by it or an athlete is in the news for it, because we know this issue is happening every single day, at least 9 seconds in the every 9 seconds in the U.S. So I want to thank you guys for being here with us tonight. Tonight I have a special guest, Rob Demio, who is smiling from ear to ear. I don't ever get him to smile often. When he smiles, that's a good thing.
I only smile
Rob,
when I'm on camera with you.
yeah, well, that's I love that. I love that because we love the happy gesture and the fact that you're here, right? Is a big deal because so tonight we were originally slated to talk with Jayshawn Madry and Rob Demio, who is here with us tonight, but Jayshawn's schedule changed. And he is working, unfortunately, tonight. So we're gonna have him on another time. But tonight, I did not want to cancel this live because we still had one half of the guests slated for tonight, and that is Rob. And Rob has been a really great friend to the organization, but we got connected under circumstances that nobody ever wants to be connected with, and so that is through the loss of his mother. His dear mother, who was taken at the hands of the abuser. She was murdered by her abuser, and I'm gonna just be plain and frank about it, right? Because that's what it was. And so Rob and I got connected, and he agreed to let us honor his mother. Um, 2 years ago at our annual heal-a-thon, where we asked folks to put on their comfiest pair of heels and walk a short distance in support of awareness. And that morning, like all the other days that we have this heal-a-thon in June, it was bright, it was sunny, it was such a good time. But more so, we got to raise so much awareness around the issue of domestic violence. And so I was so honored that Rob let us put her in the spotlight, despite that he had just lost her months prior. And that was hard. And the day of the walk, we got to, honor her birthday, which had just recently passed. And, it was just such a poignant day. So Rob is here, not just because, again, that he lost his mom, but he's continued to use his voice to advocate around the issue of domestic violence. Thank you for joining us, Shakira. Shakira says, thank you, Rob, for sharing your story. And so that's where I want to start, right? So, Rob, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and talk about how we connected and what it has meant for you leading up to this night, and being able to be a voice for your mom.
First and foremost, I'm extremely, extremely grateful for the relationship that I have with the Love Life Now Foundation and the amount of help and work that you guys are doing for people that are, suffering in silence behind closed doors, like my mother did for an
Mhm.
awful long time. Um, my mother was just my best friend, my greatest, cheerleader in life. She had her issues. She honestly and truly did. She had some mental health issues. She was bipolar. She had really, really low self-esteem. See, my mom did what a lot of single parents do. She put her kid first. I was her
Mhm.
baby boy, and she gave up everything in life to give me the best possible life that I possibly could have, and really, really overcompensated because my father was an abusive alcoholic who she had escaped his abuse years ago when I was an infant. And, she put one foot in front of the other and, pledged to herself that she'd never find herself in that situation again. But unfortunately, she did. Um, I came up just a single mom. That's all I had. It was a single mom.
Yeah.
I didn't have a dad in my life.
Yeah.
I grew up in an apartment in Somerville, Mass, out here, and she did the best she could to give me everything that I could possibly ever want, right? And see, my childhood was full of all kinds of trauma. A single mom can only keep an eye on her kid for as long as she can while she's out bringing home the bread and trying to make the rent. And I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. Abuse from my father, and my life went in a different direction. I got heavily into drugs and abusing drugs and using drugs as a teenager, and a lot having to do with, my trauma and my mom not being able to really keep that, close eye on me, and suffering from her own mental illness, not being able to have that structure that a kid my age should have had, which wasn't any fault of her own,
Right, right.
We pushed forward. My substance use disorder got extremely, it ran rampant, and it took over my life, and it also took over my mom's life. But throughout that whole time, my mother did not stop loving me at all.
I love it.
Yeah, she was there for me throughout all of my years using and drug addiction. At some point, though, as a teenager, when I was off ripping and running and doing stupid teenager stuff, well, not all teenagers were doing what I was doing, but when I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, this was back when America Online allowed you to bring strangers into your home over a chat room, right?
Right, predators.
Yeah, and she met this man. It started off online chatting in an AOL chat room, and it really is like a Lifetime movie. I sit and I think about it, and I'm just like, I've seen this movie on Lifetime. This is the stuff we warn our kids about. I never thought for a million years I'd be actually living it in real life. So she's chatting away with this guy, and it's the only attention my mother had gotten in years. Here's a woman, single mom, with mental health issues, always putting her kid first, putting herself second. Now you get a man, he's flossing online, and he's basically telling her everything she wants to hear. And, she, I don't want to say fell into it. I mean, millions of people meet their match online, but she, accepted that type of attention, and she brought it into our home. Next thing I know, this was a, year of online AOL chatting to this man coming for a visit into our home at the age of, I was 15 years old. And from the first day he walked into our house, I found alcohol in the house, and, I became a violent teenager and had this ongoing beef with my mother's boyfriend. It's the same story.
Yeah, right.
As the years went on, so did his drinking. So did I know a lot of things now that I didn't know back then. And especially as a teenager, we don't really look at those things. I was heavily involved in drugs and living my own life, and I wasn't under my mother's own roof. And things were going on that, I thought my family was aware of, but unfortunately they weren't aware of the extent of these things. And
and so I'm sorry to cut across. So when you say that the things that they were aware of, what family members are you referring to? Are they
my mother's sisters, brothers, things like that? It was always just me and my mother when she left my father, and we lived pretty far away. My mother was the youngest of 7 brothers and sisters, and she had me when she was 30. So all my cousins are in their 40s, 50s, having kids of their own. Nobody really paid attention. I kind of fly by the wayside as the black sheep of the family heroin addict. Nobody really paid attention. They were there for my mother, but too, that came with expectations, and so
you
these
weren't
things,
part of it.
No, I wasn't part of a family side. No, not at all.
Right.
He treated my mom like dog shit, to be quite honest with you. There was a lot of manipulation. There's stuff that I could see. His drinking took off. He was a severe alcoholic for years and years, did really weird stuff. The ongoing joke as a teenager is that my mother met a guy offline. He's going to boil our livers and, on the kitchen stove.
Wow.
And, at one point, my disease of addiction got so bad, I ended up separating from my mother and ripped and ran and spent, many years of in and out of substance use treatment. And, it was bad, so I didn't really see the extent of what had gone on. At one point, him and I had gone at it pretty bad that my mom sent him packing back to Arizona, where he was from, originally from America Online, and told him that she couldn't do it anymore. And then again, my substance, my drug addiction got so bad that she ended up leaving the state of Massachusetts because she couldn't deal with it anymore. And she moved down to Bradenton, Florida to, kind of follow out her dreams.
She was going to retire there?
I mean, yeah, she was going to her dream home, the beach, everything. Her sister was down there. Everything that she had, dreamed about and wanted, she kind of went out there and she got it. She had to put herself first yet again because, she was my hostage at this point. My disease of addiction was so bad. She was a hostage to my shenanigans and my unhealthy lifestyle that she needed to do this for her. And the family got her down there. They gave her everything. She provided it for herself, but they supported her and she got herself down there and she lived her life. But at some point, she was still on America. Now it's probably Google at this point. You know what I mean? Now she's chatting through emails and Facebook with this guy.
The same guy. Yeah.
Right. And who, faked it till he made it. You know, he got all the people in his life to convince my mother that he was sober and he wasn't drinking anymore, and that he was a lot better than me because he had his demons under control and I was off ripping and running. And then at some point, my mother had to have back surgery. And my mother got on the phone with me and she asked me, Rob, I have to have back surgery. Would you want to come out to Florida to, you know, kind of help me through this surgery? But, you know, I couldn't get the needle out of my neck long enough to be able to take care of my mother, let alone let the fears down that how am I going to find a drug dealer in Florida? I can't I need to stay here in Massachusetts. I can't do that. Sorry, Ma, you're on your own. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Which led her to allowing this man to come back.
Him. Yeah.
Right. And he came back into her life. And at first it started off very part-time. He'd come down for a month or two and go back. He helped her through her surgery.
And what year did she have surgery, Rob?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I couldn't tell you. It was in the midst of my active addiction. I didn't know what day of the week it was, let alone know what year it was.
Yeah.
You know, so all I know is it was a very off and on again thing. He would come back and then go back home, and he'd come back. He'd play the whole I'm sober, I'm sober, I'm sober. Didn't have really much of a program in his life. Still very dry drunk. Still hated the fact that he couldn't drink and hated everything about life because all he wanted to do was drink. No recovery. At some point, after my mother's back surgery and him coming down and, you know, kind of being that person for her. And, you know, I had a spiritual awakening, a shift in my life where I decided that this life of drug addiction, homelessness, and crime really wasn't what I wanted. And, you know, it started off with years in and out of treatment with my mom being my best friend, my biggest cheerleader. All she wanted was her baby boy back. You know what I mean? She wanted me to be free from the grips of active addiction, be able to show up for my kids and be, you know, the son that she always wanted me to be, and to thrive in life and to do the things that I was meant to do, that she raised me to do. And, you know, I had that shift back in 2015. That was my last time in treatment. Wish it was the last time I had used, but it was my last time that I needed to go to treatment, and I needed my mom to be my cheerleader. And then at some point, you know, the 24 hours of staying, you know, alcohol and drug free turned into weeks of staying alcohol and drug free, turned into months of being alcohol and drug free. And what that led me was, you know, getting the invite to finally leave the state of Massachusetts for the first time in my life, get on a plane, go to Florida, and be allowed with open arms into my mother's house. Right. And I went down there. I went down there with the girl I was seeing at the time. And we just had an amazing time, me and my mother. It was the first time in 7 years I had my mom cook for me. It was the first time she left me alone and didn't have to hide her purse. I was able to take, life was good at this point. You know, I wasn't good. I wasn't, you know, snorkeling in my Cheerios, tying my shoes with my teeth, you know, smoking crack in my mother's bathroom. So we're out at the beach where, you know, I'm buying her necklaces. I'm just being a good son. Right. You know, and I had the most amazing, I think it was 9 days with my mother that we had not had that connection. And I couldn't tell you since before 13 years old. Wow. At which point, you know, the man in her life did not like that I came with a different spin in recovery, that I had done some work on myself, that I worked on my demons and I fought through some things, and I found, you know, a sense of self and who I was. And I discovered a little bit of self-respect, and I had some principles, and I walked around with a little less personality. And I feel there was a lot of envy and, you know, what I had found in recovery. Because when I started to recover, I recovered things I never had before. You know what I mean? Right. And this was right when Hurricane Irma, I think it was Irma, was coming through Florida. And we got out of there by the skin of our teeth. I mean, we got the last flight out of Florida. It was coming in hot. Everything was closed down. As we're leaving, the gas stations got lines. There's no water to be found. Worried about my mother, but I'm a Boston kid. I'm not going to sit through a hurricane in Florida. You know, on the Gulf of Mexico. I'm all set. That's not our jam. I'll take a blizzard. I'm cool, but like, nope, I'm not doing a hurricane in Florida. Torrential rains and taxi. Hurricanes. You know what I mean? Check, please. I'm out. You know. So we got out of there. Yeah. It's funny now because when I do a Google search, he was actually the night of Hurricane Irma or whatever. Yeah, Irma, right? I think it was Irma. Whatever that big one was back in 2000 and I think 16. There's a news article now that was the day that he relapsed. Something about me being there present with the spiritual shift triggered him to finally call it a day, and he picked up his drinking, which I didn't know at the time. And I guess that relapse had taken place and had gone on for a while. Things had gotten really kind of tough down there with my mother and him. You hear everything after the fact, right? That's why it's so important for anybody listening that if you see something, you have to say something.
Have to speak up. Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess my mother was going to her friend Kathy's house on occasion because this man was getting too intoxicated and she was in fear that something bad would happen if she was there. I guess it came out in the murder trial that the neighbors were hearing a lot of arguing and fighting coming from that household, you know, many times throughout the week. And there was this, you know, unspoken thing about my mother's relationship with this man. My mother played it off like nothing was wrong. My mother has seen the physical altercations that me and this man have had over the years, and she kept it. She knows I would have killed them.
Right.
You know what
She
I mean?
didn't want you guys to clash.
She didn't want us to clash. She didn't want me on my first plane ride down there. She didn't want me to, you know, discharge him from her household. She didn't want, you know, all this chaos. And she basically felt that like it was on her to fix this situation. And, you know, she kind of took it on by herself, right? You know, thinking that, okay, you know, it's not going to happen again, or I've got this, or he loves me. And I'm pretty confident that my mom filled her head with all these false truths of what she could handle and what she could do to make this situation the best outcome for herself. And it just wasn't the case. Yeah. This had gone on for a while. I remember the last conversation I had with my mom and it was the Wednesday. My mom was killed on the Friday. It was a Wednesday. We had a great conversation. You know, it was the back and forth banter of the mother of an addict and a recovering drug addict, right? You know, Ma, don't smoke crystal meth today. Hey, you don't smoke crystal meth today. Don't worry. One of us has to have clean pee. My mother didn't use, so it was just back and forth banter, right? Yeah. We're gonna make light of the past, and we're gonna go forward, and we're gonna be mother and son, and we're gonna be best friends. And we're going to, you know, just she was my call for everything. Baby mama drama, she was the call. You know, breakups, she was the call. Anything and anything I needed, I harassed her life for.
I love it. And that's what our moms are. That's what our mothers are there for, right? And
that's right.
Use that. And that was so awesome.
I'm a big time mama's boy. Like she had like 15 different names. My friends would call her different. I'd introduce her as just random. She was my everything. She was like my best friend, you know?
Right.
The conversation was great. It was the fun banter. It was the back and forth, you know, aggravate your mother and make her want to, you know, chop her head off. And then that's worst analogy, of course, right? Yeah. I said that.
Yes.
Anyways. Wow.
Well,
is there an edit button?
We know it's not figuratively and literally. So
Jesus.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was Friday the 13th of April, right? This man that my mother was an amazing person, right? She did it with me. She did it with my father, right? She has this ability to love us when we can't love ourselves. Right. She had this amazing ability to see past the demons that we're fighting that we don't even know that we're struggling with. Right. Yeah. And she did that. Right. And she did that with me. And unfortunately, you know what I mean? Her decision to do that with this man led to it killed her, you know?
Yeah.
Friday the 13th, it was the man's 50th birthday. Barrick Poses turned 50 years old on April 13th of 2018. And for Barrick Poses' birthday, he decided he was going to drink a little bit more than he normally did.
Wow.
So I guess from what was gathered, you know, that's the hardest part is not knowing exactly what had happened. My mother and her friend, Kathy, they worked at a nursing retirement home, and they did direct care type of staff and stuff like that. And it was cool because they lived in the same trailer park in Bradenton, Florida. They were like buddies. They were inseparable, you know, and you know, my mother had taken her lunch break. First of all, my mother had gotten up to go to work around 7:00 in the morning, and she had put together a grocery list. A list of ingredients to make this man his favorite birthday dinner on his birthday. And, you know, she took off to work around noon. I think my mother understood something wasn't going on. He was sending erratic text messages that weren't making any sense to family members of mine, family members of his. My mother decided she was going to go home and kind of see what was going on. You know, she went home around noon on her
So around lunchtime,
around
around her lunch
lunchtime.
break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, about 45 minutes later, she didn't return from that lunch break, and her best friend kind of got a little concerned, and her best friend decided that she was going to go home. They only lived like a quarter of a mile away from,
From
the
each other.
yeah. Well, no, they worked a
Hmm.
quarter of a mile away from the trailer
Oh, from
park.
the park. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So her best friend decided to go home and check on her, and she walked right past the carport, a little dining, a little garden table set with the chairs and the glass
Yeah.
table. And
'Cause-
yeah, they walked right past it, went in the house, and the house was in a little bit of a mess. Nothing bad. It smelled like bleach. It was somewhat clean, and it wasn't until Kathy was leaving the house that she noticed the pile of blood under the chair in the carport of the house, and my mom wrapped up in a blanket.
mm.
Kathy went in to pull the blanket down to see if that was my mom, and Barrick took a barbell that he would work out with on the patio, and he proceeded to cave my mother's head in. Not just whoops and hit her, he went in on my
With
mother's
a level
head
of rage. Yeah.
with rage. Yeah, blind rage at that, because he had caved my mom's head in so bad that the medical examiner said she was unrecognizable. He hit her about 12 to 18 times with this 12-pound barbell, and he left the barbell on her shoulder. And poor Kathy found my mother in this condition. I mean, she did the right thing. She immediately called 911, and the Bradenton
Sure.
Sheriff's Department came, and the Bradenton Sheriff's Department asked her, where would he be, because he wasn't in the house. And now this is a man who's a complete bum, right? He's
Right.
completely came off of the internet. He hadn't worked in 15 years. He didn't have a vehicle. His family, they own some property out in Arizona. He got like a check here and there for a couple $100. Mommy would send my mother to provide for his food. So he couldn't have gone far. Kathy basically pointed out his local, watering holes, which was a bar literally around the corner from the trailer park, which he was found actually probably 30 days before that, Baker Act in Florida, because he was behind a dumpster too intoxicated to walk. The Bradenton Sheriff's Department went to that bar, and they found him sitting at the bar drinking. He still had my mom's brain matter on his pants and the blood under his fingernails and her dry blood splatter all over him. They arrested him there and brought him in for, the questioning and things like that. And there's actually a video of his interrogation on the internet. You can Google my mother's name, Joan Demio. The news articles comes up, and there's how intoxicated he actually was when the detective sat him down to interrogate him. At which point, I got a call on April 13th. It's the one call that any recovering, nobody in general, but even as a recovering addict,
Absolutely,
never
that you
wants
do
to
not
get.
want to get. Yeah.
We me in recovery, there are just some, reservations sometimes we don't even know we have, and we don't know how we're going to deal with the loss of a loved one, let alone a parent. When
Right.
I get that call, the first thing my brain wants to do is I want to get high, because I don't want to feel what I have to feel inside of what you're telling me right now, right?
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, I was with this amazing woman at her house, and she actually had just done my tarot cards. And it was crazy to get this phone call. Exactly, I was about 70 miles from anywhere I used to get high and wouldn't know a soul, and she made me stay there for the entire night, so I was safe and my recovery was intact the next morning. It's one thing to get a call that your mother is dead, but it's another thing to get a call to say that Barrett killed her.
Yeah.
And then anybody who knows or has lost a loved one to murder, and with an ongoing murder investigation, understands how hard it is to get any information out of the police. They can't give any information because it will jeopardize the integrity of a police investigation. And nothing can be leaked. I mean, at one point I hacked the man's Facebook and posted some things, and they wanted to subpoena me and have me arrested because it was interfering with an ongoing investigation. It was
Rob,
unreal.
I wanna stop right here for a minute, because this is this is I don't care how many times I hear you share this part of the story, your story leading up to it, what it looked like for you, what it meant for you. Um, it gets me at the core, right? Because again, to lose your parent is one thing. to lose your parent to somebody that you knew was no good from the outside looking in is another thing. And then to lose that person again to the level of the degree that the way he murdered her, it's unnerving, right?
You know,
And
one of the biggest things that really stuck with me is that when I was a teenager, you know, I was uneducated and very ignorant, right? And you know,
mm-hmm,
everybody always asked me, my family, about my mom's relationship with this man, and you know, my mom's relationship with my father, and it felt like, you know, she always took his side, and I'd walk around saying, "Once a battered wife, always a battered wife."
yeah,
And you know, it was
because
so
you didn't
ignorant.
know,
I didn't
you
know
didn't
any
know,
better,
yeah,
and that was
mm-hmm,
kind of my mentality. And then it kind of hit me, the harsh reality of what that actually meant. And it hit me like a bag of bricks on April 13th of 2018 when this man actually did kill my mom. It was unreal. I mean, the investigation alone was unreal. The hush hush. I mean, like, I'm a recovering addict. I'm a drug addict, right? Fear of the unknown, black and
yeah,
white. There's no gray in
it's
my life. If I use, I
yeah,
die, right? So like,
right,
here I am. It's like an ongoing hamster wheel in my head, 18 months of
mm-hmm,
not getting the answers to why. It took
why,
them almost 18 months to tell me your mother had come home from work. She had her
mm-hmm,
bag. She was sitting in her chair. She had put her bag in front of her. In that bag
mm-hmm,
was the shopping list of that man's birthday dinner, right? She had the phone, the house phone. Like, I don't know why my mother still had a house phone, but she did. You know, I don't know who. Yeah, so she's
my
got the
mom still
house
does,
phone, right? So I guess
yeah,
the last number dialed was this man's mother. So
wow,
apparently, what the investigation kind of, you know, came forward with was that my mother came home from work on her break. She found the man completely intoxicated. He got a little escalated. She had sat down in the chair. She, I think, believed she had told him to leave, and he basically said, "No, I'm not leaving," and caved her head in. That was basically it.
and that's what set him off.
And that was what set him off. That was what set him off.
and
You
and
know,
so and so why it's so important that you're sharing from this standpoint, because how often do we hear or do we say to many people on the outside looking in that leaving is the most dangerous time for people? When you tell a victim that they should leave, you can't say that black and white. You can't just
right,
be like, that's what it looks like. You can't tell them, oh well, you need to go tell him to leave. It's not as easy as that, because that sets abusers into an oblivion. Okay.
right.
It's the if I can't have you, nobody can. How dare you? I'll tell you when this is over. It's not over yet. Right. All this stuff goes through in their mind as a God-given gospel, and it's sick, and it's
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 unreal.
it's it's unreal.
This
Go
man
ahead,
was the
Rob.
most. This man was the most arrogant, the most stubborn. This man was. He thought he was the smartest man in the room. The
Mm-hmm.
manipulation,
Yeah.
the gaslighting, all of the signs were there with my mom's relationship. Every single one. I was too strung out to
Mm-hmm.
see them and alert anybody, and I was uneducated and didn't know anything about domestic violence awareness or what was going
Mm-hmm.
on behind closed doors. And you know, now we make it to the trial, right? We make it to the
Right.
first case management hearing. And I mean, there were people that were reaching out from Florida. I had to fly out there, I had to do funeral, I had to handle my mother's estates. Here I am doing all
Yeah.
this and trying to
Yeah.
not stick a needle in my
Trying
neck.
to stay clean. Yeah.
Right. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but I made it through. I used the resources that I had developed, again, just not only because I do the domestic violence awareness too, the addiction awareness and the advocacy work that I do here in Massachusetts, what I do for a living. I have an army of other recovering addicts that may not know or understand what I'm going through, but can stand
Right.
up and help me from making a really bad decision. Right. See,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this man had taken my mother, but I wasn't going to let him take my recovery either. And I made that very clear in the
Mm-hmm.
courtroom when it became my turn to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we went to this trial, and it was the first time I had ever been introduced to a domestic violence advocate in my life.
Wow.
Right. So we're in
Wow.
trial. We're there. I mean, I don't know who thought it was a great idea to put me 15 feet like behind the guy,
From him. Yeah. Whew. Are you?
but yeah, it didn't go over so well. It took about 8 court officers to pull me away and get me down. I've got a Justice for Jones shirt, and I've got this wonderful angel saint woman, a domestic violence advocate
Yeah.
out of the Bradenton U.S. Attorney's Office. I've got 8 court
Mm-hmm.
officers. I'm going for blood, and I'm
Right.
just,
Right.
you know what I mean. I'm hemmed up by the court
Mm-hmm.
offices, and I've got this woman who's calming me down, and she became very close to me for the remainder from the first case management
Meeting.
hearing, to
Yeah.
the actual trial date, and she became she was an advocate. She was advocating
Yeah.
for me. She was allowing to me to be my mother's voice. And at some point between these times is when I got introduced to you and everything that you were doing. So it kind of
Yeah.
aligned with, here I am
Everything
doing
that
this out here
moment.
in Massachusetts, but I have people like you behind me. And honestly,
Yeah.
Laverne, if I didn't have you or the Love Life Now Foundation behind me through this to give me an outlet to be my mother's voice, to tell my mother's story,
And
I could be under a bridge getting high, homeless, or overdosing dead myself. You know what I mean? So I'm extremely
listen,
grateful for you and everybody and all of my survivor family that I've met. All of them. The list is huge.
the list is huge,
It really
right?
is. Name them off, but I'm sure they're gonna catch wind of this and just they know that I
Yes,
love them. We all keep in contact, and it's
absolutely.
an amazing thing of what you guys are doing. And I only wish my mother had got involved. And I am so grateful for all of our survivor family that they got away and didn't end up like my mother. And
Yeah.
we went through this trial. I'm a very personable person. I use my voice quite often, not just
Yeah.
only to speak up for other addicts who are dying in silence, but also now for other people who are faced with the same situation my mother was faced with and didn't have a voice to speak up and ask for help. So I
Yep.
made the courtroom my own. The
Hmm.
jurors fell in love with me, and I became friends with most of them. I think some of the jury's still on my Facebook.
I love it.
They came to a conclusion. I can go into the details of what happened, but they came to the conclusion that he was guilty of first-degree murder in the state of
Hmm.
Florida. Didn't meet any markers for the death penalty, but he did, warrant for life without
Life.
parole in,
Hmm.
maximum security prison in the state of Florida. So that's where he's sitting now.
Yeah.
I got my chance to speak out, and I had this long, huge. I posted it on Facebook, everything that I had to say, including the fact
Hmm.
that he may have taken my mother, but he hasn't won because he hasn't taken my recovery, and that I will continue to be my mother's voice. And my mother wasn't a victim, and I refuse to allow my mom to be his victim. My mom is just a
Hmm.
weapon of God
Yes.
for
Through
her story
you.
to go out and for others to.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother suffered. My mother and I had more in common than I knew that we actually had in common, right? Because I suffered for
Hmm.
years with a needle in my neck, too
In
afraid, too
silence.
ashamed, too much guilt to raise my hand and
Hmm.
ask for help, right? And it
Hmm.
took me a long time to do that. And my mother suffered the same in silence, in closed doors, too scared with shame, riddled with guilt, shame, and fear to raise her hand and ask for help. She couldn't ask me.
Hmm.
There was no
Hmm.
Love Life Now Foundation in the Bradenton, Florida area. There was,
Right.
there was nobody coming into your home through Facebook Live, or, it
Hmm.
was something that she never thought she'd be faced with, right? The
Yeah.
warning signs were all there, but there was nobody to point out the warning signs, right? The
Right. Right.
community wasn't, educated enough. If somebody had said or picked up the phone in the trailer park, hey, Rob, like, there's a lot of yelling and screaming going by, like, what was brought to the light, you know what I mean, dies. You know what I
Right.
mean? We're only as
Right.
sick as our secrets. At least I am in recovery. And like, if
Yeah.
somebody had brought light to what was going on behind closed doors, there may have been a slight chance that the outcome could have been different, right? Because
Yeah.
then we're
Yeah.
allowing some sort of intervention, something to intervene to change the outcome and trajectory of the situation at hand. And it's so important to speak up and talk about it.
It is. It is. And this is a good marker for us to just pause for a second because you said a lot again, and
Good. I
I
need a
love
vape
it. I
break.
love. I love vape. Yeah. So, you know, one of the things talked about was, the fact that while this was happening, right? So you're trying to go through this court process. You talked a lot about support, right? Support in Florida, support here when you have to come back, support when you went back, right? And having an advocate by your side. So we tell people a lot of times that you do not have to do this by yourself. We caution folks that you do not do this leaving thing by yourself. If you're thinking about leaving, that you do not do it by yourself, because there is support for folks to reach out to you to walk you through this process. I'm currently talking with a survivor now who is in a space where she is seeking to leave, um, but can't do it on her own. She knows she can't do it on her own, and that's why she reached out for help. So we have this whole sort of network and surrounding her to help her out. And this is what it's about. Now, for your mom, God bless her heart, God bless her soul, she was not able to be in contact or even knew what help was and what help looked like. The neighbors that lived in the same trailer park, right? They heard the They heard the arguments, but were they educated enough to know that they should be speaking up and calling the police any given time they hear something? Were they educated enough to give your mom a phone number for a domestic violence agency in the area that could potentially help her safety plan around getting this man out of the house? None of that happened, right? And again, it was so disheartening to know that all sort of the placements were there to help, and none of them got executed. Okay. But you are here now, and you've been doing this work ever since, between the addiction awareness and the detox center and using your voice on platforms like this to tell people that they are not alone. And that's a big deal. And I don't think people understand how much strength it takes to even get to muster up, to speak. Now, your mom was taken in
Yep.
April of that year. And then we went on, I invited you to come on, I think it was NBC 10 Boston with me to talk about the walk, to talk about what your
Yeah.
mom meant. And this was April, May, June. This was about 2 months. And you sat there in that interview, and you were so poignant about the facts about why it was so important. And you say you love us and you admire us. I admire your strength to be able to deliver, the message, the awareness around this issue. Again, even when it was so early on in the process. So I commend you, man.
Thank
This is
you.
not an easy trail to walk. And I can say to this day, how many years have you been sober?
I'm coming up on 5 years sober again.
five
Yep.
year
5 whole years.
anniversary.
No
Yeah,
relapse.
no relapse.
There's
Um,
so much to it that's involved. I mean, at one point during the trial, or through it, I mean, there was a phone call recorded in the jail that he had told a family member, that was my Joan. I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't drunk. Right? It was something that was said. It's something that I held on to. Not only do I do this, but with the alcoholism and the drug addiction, I am the outreach coordinator for Sunrise Detox, and we've got 8
yeah.
locations across the coast. And I do have a reach to help people who are struggling with alcoholism or drug addiction, right? And very
Mm-hmm.
quickly, and have the means and the resources to help them long term, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I started to see was that a lot of these domestic violence situations do come with some sort of alcoholism or
It
substance use
intersects.
disorder. Sort of,
Mm-hmm.
there's a gap. There
Mm-hmm.
honestly and truly is. And whether it be the abuser can't stop drinking, he's
Mm-hmm.
strung out on cocaine,
Yep.
or it be that the victim is self-medicating, can't stop
Mm-hmm.
drinking because of the abuse she's under. She's using it to make herself better, to get through.
Yep.
There is a very big gap that needs to be filled, and I'm so
Yep.
grateful to be, with and have Sunrise Detox behind me, to be able to use my voice and facilitate the resources for an abuser, a victim, a family member, a child, anyone who's struggling with substance use disorder, and be
Yep.
able to help women. I mean, there's been number of calls, the fastest
Yep.
way out with HIPAA protecting location and
Right. All of that.
confidentiality, to put a
Yeah.
woman in treatment who's self-medicating, get her away from her abuser long enough for her to have a sober thought that that's not the life that she wants to live, and get her
Mm-hmm.
life on track, relocate, and be
Mm-hmm.
able to live a life second to none, free from
Right.
active addiction and the abuse of her
And
abuser.
abuse, and
Right.
abuse. Right. 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 And so, just within the last year alone, when you talk about the intersectionality of, alcohol addiction and domestic violence, like you said, it is completely there. Just within the last year, you and I have talked about at least 2 cases, right?
Right.
Where, whether it was on my end needing, substance abuse help, or your end needing DV,
Right.
shelter, right? And so we just, again, like you said, the gap needs to be filled. But again, when you start with at least reaching out to a DV agency, and so Ashley Burton says, "Let's connect." I don't want to let that pass. And there are so many great comments here on this live. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I do not want to discount the guests for chiming in. There've been so many
Absolutely.
great comments, and I just appreciate all of you for being here and being part of the conversation, because this is how we get, this is awareness, right? This
That's
is
it.
where the conversation happens, the awareness happens, and fact the resources and the fact that they are available start. So I want to go through some of the comments because there's been more than a few, and I'll start from the top, and we'll scroll through them because we have about 10 more minutes left. We'll go a little bit 5 minutes over. So Shakira, who has been chiming in, Ashley, have both said you're so strong. Manur chiming in from Pakistan. Manur was a guest of ours a few weeks ago, and I want to thank you for sharing your story, Manur. It's heartbreaking listening to the life you went through being a kid, as you have nobody but your parent to look up to. You're a very, very brave person. Never forget, God gives us the hardest battles to his strongest soldiers. I'll share it on screen here. And that you got this. Don't worry, keep going. Life is hard, but good stuff is waiting for you to happen. And I think a lot of that good stuff has already happened for Rob. So thank you
Absolutely.
for that, Manure. You got Amber chiming in. Thank you, Amber Smith. Rosa is with us as well. Rosa said often victims hide it out of fear, out of embarrassment. She said she didn't want her family, especially her mom, to know, because it would have been proof that when she left her house at 16, something might have happened to her. And that was, at the point telling herself that she had failed. If her mom had found out. Denise says, yes, you were. I'm assuming that relating to you being strong. Kathy says, sorry for your loss. And many of these comments saying, sorry for your loss. As we go down the comments here, Ashley says that she lost her family to addiction and abuse, and she loves you for being so strong and getting your story out. Absolutely. Shakira says leaving is absolutely the worst and dangerous time to leave an abuser. And again, we have to reiterate that this is absolutely the case, because again, it is to the point where an abuser says to themselves that they would rather see you dead, not to end up with somebody else, not to end up without them, not to move on as a happy, normal person, because they want to inflict pain and trauma as much as they can. So, yes, Shakira, absolutely. Ashley says there are red flags for women and men. We should see it, but, we are here to help. And so I'm going to connect you with Ashley after we're done. Kathy says the more education we can give for the red flags, the better. And Manu, yeah, abusers think they're God's gift to women, that they can do anything to anyone. They don't care about anyone or anything. They're pure evil. A person needs boundaries to stay within the limit of what we call ourselves human, because it's very easy for us to cross over onto the dark side if we don't. And so, just in that comment, I'd like to point out that, yeah, it's right. I mean, as an individual, you are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to be alone, right? And none of that is bad, right? And abusers make you think that all of that is bad. So thank you, Manir, for that. Shakira says she can't wait to meet you. You are all good, definitely going to meet. If you are part of the Love Life Now Survivor Network, we host, typically we have a annual survivor gathering. And you will be a part of that this year, Shakira. So yes,
Right
definitely
on.
looking to connecting all of you. So a lot of comments here. I want to thank you guys for being part of this. Vivian says she's proud of you, bro, for everything that you're doing and sharing your story, Boston Strong. And down to Shakira, sorry, Cheryl, our good friend Cheryl Marie, I'm
Wow.
proud of you. Survivors stay silent for so many reasons: embarrassment, love. They think that they can save the relationship. They try to save the reputation of the abuser. So while you're trying to maneuver, leaving, trying to get yourself safe, trying to, move on, you don't want to get this person in trouble. Like, after everything that's been said and done to you, you don't want to get this person in trouble because you believe that they will change. And this isn't a big deal of what's happening to you, right? You don't want to have them to go to jail because of something that happened to you, and you're putting them first at all points during this process. So, Rob, I would like for you to share a little bit about Sunrise Detox and the services that you guys offer. I'm going to put it in the comments. Should you know someone suffering from substance abuse, to get in contact with Rob, can you share a little bit about the services that you offer?
Yeah, we're at Full Medical Detox right in Millbury, Massachusetts. It's right outside of Worcester. We also have locations in Florida, Georgia, New Jersey, and we're about to open up in New York. It's Full Medical Detox. If you're,
Hmm.
if you're fully, dependent upon alcohol or any kind of substance, you come to us and we medically get you off, to make it as comfortable, and we detox you with dignity. The accommodations are absolutely 5-star and beautiful. We're just here to help you get on track and to, really break that vicious cycle of alcoholism and drug addiction. We offer many different services that hold you up for an hour and a half to give you the full, overview of what we do. But if you are struggling with substance use disorder, alcoholism, if you're struggling with any kind of medication abuse, medication management, please feel free to give me a call. My cell phone number, you can throw it in the chat. We're 24 hours, 7 days a week,
Yep.
full transportation, the whole gamut, and we're here. I think the comments are right on the money. I feel like prevention starts with education, and awareness starts with breaking the silence. Right? Closed mouths don't get fed. It got my mother dead. Right? And I don't know how else to reiterate that, but I'm a firm believer that I know I had to break my silence. I had to come out from under a bridge and raise my hand and ask for help. And I
Hmm.
got the help that I needed. And I feel like the more we're speaking up and talking about this and bringing it to light, the more the issue is, being exposed. Because for what it is, it's just COVID-19 is a pandemic. There's so many
Yep.
people with alcoholism, drug addiction, domestic violence
In the same house.
in the same house. It's it's a recipe for disaster, right? And I'm the father of the most amazing, beautiful 4-year-old little girl, right? I
Yeah.
can't stand her mother, right? But the way I treat her mother, the respect that I give her mother, right? The love that I show her mother is the love and the respect that she's going to expect a man to give her as she gets older, right?
That's it.
My daughter's brother, right? How's he supposed to ever, the way I treat his mother, my daughter's mother, is the way
Yeah.
that he's going to perceive it, right? And if we don't
Mhm.
start early and we don't show this respect and this love that women should have, right?
Mhm.
My kid's
Mhm.
mother, she's a great mom, right? Why
Yeah.
wouldn't I give her the respect and the love that she deserves? So my daughter to see that and mirror, that's the type of love that she should receive, right? And that's
That's it.
what all of this has shown me. That is
Mhm.
what I mean. I don't look like the most approachable guy. I get it, but like for me, it really comes
He's a
down
sweetheart.
to it really comes down to my
Yeah.
children, my daughter,
Mhm.
right? My mom, I can't. There's nothing I can do, right? I can only
Right.
be her voice. I can only tell her story, and I can only
Mhm.
hope and pray someone finds some sort of help and finds their path and their way through my mother's story, not allowing themselves to end up the way my mother ended up, right? But I do have a choice here now to show my daughter what she should expect from the opposite
Mhm.
sex, what
Mhm.
boundaries she should have up for herself as she moves forward and grow. I wish she'd stay forever, little forever, but
I know. I
that little
know.
girl is gonna grow. Daddy's either gonna catch a felony or I'm gonna be walking her down the aisle, one or the other. But she's just that's where it's at. That's really
Yeah.
what I see from this situation is moving forward. How do I make sure she has the respect and the self-respect and the dignity
Yes.
that she requires to be able to get the best out of life in general, just in the workforce, right?
Yeah. Yep.
um
Yep.
in school, right?
Right. Amongst the peers. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
just in general, what we allow is
Yeah.
what's going to continue. And if I allow myself to treat her mom or any woman in my life, that in
Right.
general return is what they're going to expect is the quote unquote normal, and it's not.
It's not. And so, great points. This is a great topic to end on because we have to show. And your child, your daughter is 4. She's so
Yeah, she's
beautiful little
amazing.
girl. Beautiful little girl. I love seeing you guys together, right? And so, but what you said is so important because children are often given the shoddy end of the stick because a lot of the times when victims are in these relationships, they believe, well, he's never seen me get hit or she's never seen me get slapped and he never yells at me in front of her or him. So it's okay, right? I can take this stuff behind, behind closed doors, and it'll be okay. And that's certainly not the case. Children pick up on attitudes and behaviors. So a slap never has to fly, right?
No.
A punch never has to land on you. If you come a room and you're happy go lucky, your mom, you're who your child knows you to be, and you go into the room with your daughter's father, your son's father, and you come back out a different way, trust and believe your son or your daughter knows that something is wrong, and
Right.
daddy is the one that did it, or mommy is the one that did it. And they're picking up on those emotional dramas that you're going through, and they're taking it on themselves. That's nothing something a child should ever have to carry. I speak from a child witness point of view, and I know what that's like. So when Rob says, as a man, man or woman, right? But as a man, when he's saying that we have to mirror these relationships for our children, that my God, it is so utterly important, not just to say, I love you, but show it, right? What does it mean to be affectionate to mommy or daddy? What does it mean to hug in their presence? What does it mean to sit down as a family and watch a movie together? Like all of these little things that we may take for granted, children are looking to us for. They are our, we are their first indicators about what their adult relationships are going to look like. So it is insanely important, whether or not you feel like you've kept this quiet behind closed doors for a long time. Like, my God, know that you're whatever job you think you're doing, it's not enough. All right. And it's so it will mean, right, first of all, making a choice, if not for your just for yourself, but for your children, to leave,
Right.
right, getting the support that is
Absolutely.
available to make that transition, because they will pick up those on behalf. And again, I speak from experience when I talk about the book that I just wrote, The Legacy He Left Me,
I love
that
it.
this is what is this trickles down from a very standpoint. If you've never sort of understood the dynamic, this is what trickles down to children. Yes, it's that energy. Ashley says critically important.
If we want to see the change, we have to be the change, right? And I know I can
Absolutely.
sit up here on a Facebook Live and say all sorts of good shit that makes sense, but if my audio is not matching my visual with the way that I live my life, there's not going to be any change. I'm staying stuck in the problem rather than the solution. And for my sake, for my mom's sake, and for my daughter's sake, I need to, lead by example. And that's what I
Mhm.
choose to do in my life. I'm not perfect. I'm human. I fall short.
We all are.
But at the end of the day, I have a good grasp on what I want for my children. I have a good
Mhm.
grasp on what I want for myself. And I'm going to
Mhm.
continue to do the work that I do. I'm going to continue to raise my hand and speak whenever I can, to be my mom's voice, to advocate for my mom and for Love Life and for all my
Yeah.
survivor family, and be there for anybody who's struggling in silence, too scared to break their own and ask for help. I'm here.
Thank
And that's
you.
what I'm going to continue to do.
Thank you, Rob. And that's where we end tonight. I want to thank each and every single person for being part of this conversation. Awareness doesn't happen if you're not part of the conversation. So I want to thank you for doing that, for sticking with us for this hour. I know you could have been anywhere else, but I know the fact that you're here means that you want to be. And I always tell folks that before they join the live, I promote these, I just pop up, right? So, Rob, utterly, I want to thank you again for being a part of the conversation and using your voice. It is so important to hear, not just from women who you typically hear from on this issue. Men have a responsibility for being part of the solution,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
and pulling up the people in their corner, right? So
Every time.
right? So if you hear another man talking out the side of his neck, what is your responsibility as his friend to say that you will never condone this, and that you can't rock with him if this is what you're doing,
That's
right?
right.
What is your responsibility to sort of find out what the DV agency is in your area to get your the female counterpart of that whole dynamic help, right? Put that number in her hand, right? To say that you support her, that you will be there for her at any given point, right? If I am,
Absolutely.
what do they say? What, if I'm friends with your abuser, let me know I'm done, right? I'll be done with them, right? So it takes that level of support to show that you really are part of the solution. So thank you guys tonight. I will put Sunrise Detox's information in the chat once we end the live. And again, I want to thank you, Rob, for being part of
Thank
the
you.
solution
Thank
and
you
being
for
part of the
everything.
show.
It
Love
never
you, bro.
gets easy. Every time I come up and I
Yeah.
talk my story of my mother, when I close the computer or I walk off a podium, it
Yeah.
hurts. You know what I mean? But and
Mm-hmm.
it brings up a lot of feelings and a lot of pain and a lot of why. But after
Mm-hmm.
every single time, I'm so grateful that I get the opportunity, and I'm so blessed to be able to share my mom's story with everybody watching. So whoever jumped on, I'm wicked grateful you were here. And if I can
Man,
help, reach out.
thank you. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you another time we pop up.